Download our app today at newwavetkd.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Martial Perspective. Today is Monday, May 11th, 2026, and my guest today is Grandmaster Ed Mathna, formerly of Ohio Jido Kwan Association, that is now known as the American Jido Kwan Association, founded by Grandmaster AL Fuzy, who is the late Grandmaster AL Fuzy, who rests his soul. And the organization is now headed up by Grandmaster Mary Kay Fuzy, with the assistance of Grandmaster Ed Mathna. Hey, thank you for being on the show, sir. How are you?
Sure, no problem. I'm doing great. And yourself?
Good. So let's get started here. When did you start your martial arts training, sir?
Well, I started in the mid 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And, back in those days, you didn't have the kids or anything like that, just a couple of them. So they were just nothing but a bunch of bangers going at it type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you were viewed as fresh meat when you came in.
So it's safe to say that the training back then was a lot more harsh than it is today.
Well, from what I've seen, and yes, it's definitely a lot more harder. You didn't train with all the headgear, pads, or foot gear, shin pads. We were trained under the guidance of, well, if you got hit first on the street, you better be able to take that punch.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not conditioning your body if you can't take those punches or strikes that they come at you with.
Right.
So
So
that's pretty much the start of things.
interesting. So when you started, Grandmaster Fuzy already had established his school, and what was he like? What was Grandmaster Fuzy like? Was he a tough guy?
Oh, yeah, he was very stringent on his teachings and training, old school, probably most likely because of, his original instructor was Robert Moore. And from what
Mm-hmm.
stories I've heard of that guy, he was pretty stringent and, you know, he's not taking anything from anybody. You do it my way and that's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas today it's like, yeah, we'll do whatever we want. you know, we
Right.
didn't step out of the zone. You didn't, in other words, you go to a school now, you will see beginners teaching other beginners.
Yeah.
If he walked out on the floor and seen a yellow belt showing a white belt how to do something, you were toast. You were going to get push-ups because he didn't want individual uh, issues. Like a guy has he goes to throw a punch and his arm's too straight or his shoulders flailing or his elbows flailing. Well, that yellow belt is now teaching the white belt all his bad habits. And
Right.
Fusey didn't. The only people that could help you were the advanced middle ranking Q ranks. Green
Mm-hmm.
belt and above. Other than that, you weren't allowed to do that. I mean, give you an example. Another thing, we did notebook classes also, and
Mm-hmm.
that would include everything you're taught down at the school. It would taught preventative taping. You had to do, put in a skeleton sketch and know all the skeletons in a body and type of stuff like that. Because physically, if you're out there and you hurt somebody, well, you better know how to tape them up or fix them or get help.
Right.
On the street, no, you take care of the problem and you get the hell out. You don't stick
Yeah.
around for their friends to come around at you if they had
Right.
any. But
Yeah.
if you were warned once if you didn't show up with your notebook when he
Mm-hmm.
had a notebook class. Now they were always surprises. You just never knew when you were going to have one. You could go
Mm-hmm.
6, 7 months without even having one. But if you came down there without your notebook, you're going to be doing 200 push-ups.
Right.
Not 20, not 10, but 200. And on your knuckles.
Ooh, that's a little
Yes.
rough.
Yes. Just a tad. Now, I have I have never seen anybody with the focus and power like what he was able to do, other than, my interactions that I personally had with Robert Moore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, had one guy. They were sparring pretty heavy down there. He did a sprint. People call it a spinning hook kick. We call it a spinning turnheel kick.
Mm-hmm.
And he hit the guy in the jaw, but looked controlled, and he split the guy's upper palate.
Mm-hmm.
And this was him sparring another black belt. It wasn't like he did it against a lower ranking individual.
Mm-hmm.
He got to the point that after a black belt test, a guy was in the kendo equipment, headgear, and everything, and our one-step sparring or wazas is performed full contact.
Mm-hmm.
You have tennis shoes on, and you got the kendo gloves on, and they got the chest piece, and the head protector on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the uke the previous set of 10 on this test. And then when you do each belt level, you bow out and another opponent would step in.
Mm-hmm.
This guy stepped in, and the particular technique, I don't know if it was the first set or the second set or the 10th set. It's just such a long time ago. I just don't recall.
Right.
They were doing a spin turn heel kick on their opponent, and it just wasn't coming out the way he'd like to see it. So on your test, it's not uncommon to hear the words ineffective, do it again. He won't tell you what you're doing wrong. He's just going to keep saying that until he decides, well, I'm going to have to show you.
Right.
And that poor uke, me being one of them, have been in that position. But in this situation, he did it slow motion. Hit the guy in the kendo equipment, and he folded. He was out like a light. And he tells me to run into the office, go get the kit, which was the emergency kit, and bring it to him. And they got ammonia capsules. Break them open, wave them underneath his nose. No reaction. Now, this would be late 70s. And the waved it underneath this guy's nose. Nothing happened. He then breaks one more open in half and shoved one half in each nostril. Finally, the guy wakes up. You know, the era back then, now we know, hey, man, that guy was out cold and he's got a concussion.
Right.
He needs to go to the doctor's emergency room. No, Fuzy just set him off to the side with his head down next to him. I had to get back in the gear and finish the rest of that set up. I spent 4 hours plus getting booked. But after that test, he never would throw that turn heel kick again.
Oh,
because if he
geez.
could do that to somebody in a full armor, slow motion, you can only imagine. And Fuzy had, which a lot of the martial arts back then had a off sense of humor.
Right.
When this particular guy was down on the ground laying next to him so he can keep an eye on him, his name was Bill. And as we were going along through the rest of the test, you would hear Bill, mumbling. And Fuzy would do the old, how many fingers do I have up test? Well, his way of performing the test was this. How many? And Bill go, out again he goes. That was going on all night long. And we just left him there for 4 hours. I'm in this armor getting my handed to me. I mean, it was full contact. And the only way to end that portion of your test, once you get through all your wazas, you can shorten it if you knocked everybody out. Well, one is down, and then poor old me, I was too stupid to go down. I got so tired, and I sent you the one showing me as a skinny kid in the
Blue belt.
getting picked up, and you posted it on your site, and I was that skinny on that test. Well, you know how the armor plate curves around your body?
Right.
Well, it would hit the floor first, the edges, and then me. I got so tired, I'm rolling around like a turtle. I can't get to my feet. I can't roll myself over in this thing. He took a black belt and had him stand next to me. Every time I went down, he picked me up. That was just part of our test. That wasn't the whole test. I mean,
Right.
but a sense of humor like none other, but also a disciplinary.
Hmm.
You know, if you were out there being a bully with the martial arts, you were going to have a special class,
Nobody wanted that, did they?
a closed class.
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah, I mean, we had a school that had a second floor on it, and we had these two students. They were mid-level, advanced Q ranks. They might have been purple belts, maybe. They
Mhm.
might have even been brown belts. I don't recall, but they were in a tournament because they lost. And you know, we bow in, we bow out. We show no emotion,
Mhm.
no disrespect to the school or to him, as way it would be.
Mhm.
And they didn't bow out; they stomped out. Well, they had a special class. All you could hear is all this commotion upstairs while I'm downstairs teaching. They came out; they were drenched, soaking wet.
Mhm.
And you know, the one guy is retired now down in Florida, and we talk about it still today. And he's like, "Man, I never made that mistake again." I go, "I don't know what you guys did, but I don't want part of it either." And you know,
Right.
we had, you know, it's just one of those things. You know, martial artists, they can have a temper or they don't have a temper.
Mhm.
But you know, his humor was just unbelievable. He made and took for Christmas. It was you just never knew what we are going to have at a Christmas party.
Mhm.
He decided he was going to take the Rocky movie from the 70s, the original Rocky movie, and make a comical type thing about martial arts. He's training, he's running along the docks in Cleveland like a bat out of hell. You know, he's
Mhm.
climbing up whatever stairs, kind of imitating. And there's a scene where he's going to chug down the eggs.
Mhm.
He chugs them down with a person who's training him instead of whatever the old man in Rocky was Grandmaster Harrington.
Mhm.
So they both had a sick sense of humor, and a lot of it I can't say on
Mhm.
this podcast.
Right.
And the one scene was him chowing down his eggs, and the other screen is Harrington hovering over the sink puking. Then there'd be another scene where how to intimidate your opponent.
Mhm.
And Harrington's out there, you know, gonna take on Fuzy, and all you see is Fuzy go to approach him. Harrington standing there, and the camera view is up between the legs.
Mhm.
You know, so you got Fuzy in front and Harrington behind the camera view going up between his legs. The next scene, all you see is a squirting of water pouring all over Fusy's pant legs, which was actually like in a balloon or something like that. And
Right.
he goes walking off the dojo shaking his leg, like, you know, piss on the guy.
Right.
You know, those are some of his humor traits, and you know, and there's so much of that. And talented musician also. You
Mhm.
know, he could play the keyboard. Was in a band called Stutz.
Mhm.
You know, a local band that ran around, but they made one album. I don't remember the name of it, but it
Mhm.
was more harder rock type stuff. You know, the long hair days and the whole ball wax, and you know, but you just never knew, you know, the type of personality you be against. I mean, the demo team that we had, which was called Kicks,
Mhm.
that went from the mid '70s to I want to say the early '80s, maybe.
Mhm.
Not only did you have to take your regular training classes, you also had to meet your tournament requirements, which was back then it was two minimum a month. Every month you had to attend two tournaments.
Oh,
If you
geez.
didn't, you didn't go to you don't get promoted.
Mhm.
So he kept a strict, you know, dynamic on your training.
Mhm.
And if you didn't follow those, you know, you didn't get promoted. You don't ask for promotions. You
Right.
don't go up and say, "Hey, when do I get promotion?" Well, so and so's ahead of you, and then so and so's behind you, but now you're going to drop behind that person,
Right.
and you know, we're going to put you back on the back burner. You just
Mhm.
didn't ask, and that, you know, a lot of us will, that are from that era, we chuckle and laugh about it today, but we sure didn't back then. But
Right.
we
No.
didn't quit either. We were pushing through it because that's how they trained. There's a story of a gentleman. I don't know. Ray Sturger.
Yes, I know the name.
Okay, Ray Sturger was one of also Robert Moore's black belt. Big early guy. His forearms are bigger than my calf muscle. Just a big guy. I sparred him plenty of times. He doesn't feel pain. Now people will sit there and yeah. This guy does not feel pain. He was doing his black belt test, and his opponent was a guy named Paul Ornowski. They're both getting ready to get tested, around the same time period. I don't know if it was a month later that Ornowski. So he was a brown belt. Right. And in one of his wazas, Sturgura had, I'm going to pick him up and drive him into the ground and hold him short. Moore saying, ineffective, do it again. Oh. Ineffective, do it again. Did that, I don't know how many times. Then Sturgura will tell you that he looked at Ornowski in his eyes and said, I'm sorry. And planted him into the ground.
Was that effective then?
Yeah, it was very effective then. and there's a funny story of Fuzy's black belt where he about knocked himself out. A backward punch. Yeah, he went to do a backward punch, which is an elbow strike with a back fist at a forefist punch at the same time. He hooked his pinky finger in a gi and punched himself in the eye. Dropped himself to the ground. Now, he doesn't like that story getting out there, but Harrington would tell it every chance he got.
Was that effective?
Yes. And Harrington physically was laughing so hard that they had to take a long break to get him to stop his laugh because they couldn't focus anymore. So, yeah, those guys were bad at that. I mean, I've been an uke for all of them. And Fuzy always volunteered me up back then because he said two things. Mathna can fly really well, and he bounces good.
Right. Well,
so
got to know how to hit the ground.
Well, and well, there's some things that they do, they don't warn you about. Harrington loved the one throw he would do, but you have no clue how the landing's going to be like. You get thrown the first time and your arms are whipped behind your back and you realize you're going to hit the ground head first, face first, chest first. And the first time it's all a joke for them to laugh at you because you didn't know how to land. The second time you learn to turn a little bit to hit on your side. And then you got the other nice black belt going, Sensei, can I see that again? Because they're all enjoying the fact that you're being used as a dummy. And they want to get their licks in because they know as soon as they get to step in and do something, the others are going to do it to them too.
Oh, absolutely.
So but you don't see that kind of atmosphere going on anymore. And as he got older, things started to relax a little bit. Our black belt test was kind of the same, but we were more critical on injuries or hey, if you're a little wobbly on your feet, we're done. You're considered knocked out. We're not talking about being knocked out, cold knocked out. When I got done with that test after being hit for now, think about people getting hit for 4 hours.
It's rough.
And what that does to you. Well, I had a headache for 2 weeks. I had no clue. I was only like 18 years old, 19 years old.
Probably a concussion.
It was a concussion. I learned later on. I was taking care of my elderly grandfather at the time. So it was just me and him at the house. So it was nothing. I could go to like a parent and say, hey, I got this headache that just won't stop.
Right.
To get any type of guidance on it. And you went to the school. The one thing you don't say is, you're hurt. Because the bad guy on the street don't care if you're hurt.
No.
you know, and Sensei would ask you, you know, on a test, are you okay? Your response was always, yes, Sensei.
Mm-hmm.
My black belt tells I fractured what later became my left wrist. It
Oh.
popped. I didn't know what it was, and it just dropped to my side. That was on the heavy bag work, and quickly was asked if I'm okay. Well, I've been programmed all those years to say, yes, Sensei, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as soon as I got done with the heavy bag work, you go do 4 hours plus of kata work.
Mm-hmm.
Kata work was basically set up kind of like what Chuck Sheridan said, which would have been influenced by Robert Moore, I'm sure, through Tom Benich.
Mm-hmm.
Is you did it slow the first time, as if you were going to teach it. The
Mm-hmm.
second time, you're doing it slow with power. Third time, as if you were doing it at a tournament speed and power, you know, tournament style. And
Right.
then you did the bunkai after that. And then you had to give the explanation of it. So you're
Mm-hmm.
going to do 10, 12, how many katas, and do them all 4 different times each. You know, you
Wow.
just did 4 hours on a heavy bag, maybe
So you're already
three.
tired. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, and the heavy bag is a 120-pound heavy bag.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing you don't want to do is ever kick the bottom 6 inches of that bag.
Right.
All the sand is down at that bottom. It's like a rock. And
Mm-hmm.
you did your katas, get through that part, and your brain is now fried. So
Mm-hmm.
you're now exhausted, your brain is gone, your body just, you know, you're just going through the motions. And then now you got to do your wazas. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I already been a nuke, so I kind of know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me back up a little bit what they did to me before my test. My long day was scheduled. You go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 hours each day. And you're
Mm-hmm.
just working on your line and your combination move it forward and backward at each rink. And you get through that. Then you got to rest on Friday. Then you got your long day on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I was scheduled at 8 in the morning. The school is a half a block from my house.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knew that. I probably lived the closest. At that time, Sensei Fuzy lived in Lakewood. So
Okay.
he had to drive every single day from Lakewood to Lorain, Ohio. You know, well, I get a phone call at 1:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I get the phone, I pick it up and talk to it, and it was another black belt who was going to be on the board and pretty much telling me I have a half hour to be at the school or I fail.
Ooh.
Now you sit there and go, well, you know, I kind of knew they played a lot of the head games. They're trying to destroy your brain to see how you act.
Mm-hmm.
They know you can do all the techniques
Right.
because you know you've done it all, but they want to see how your body reacts when you're mentally gone.
Mm-hmm.
They want to break that part of you down,
Right.
and then you know you're just working off of emotion and heart at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I get there, racing all the way down there and get in there and get up there, and, let's go. It's like, dang, okay. So now I'm working on just, very minimum sleep. Not that you could really sleep before your test, but,
No.
I've always had this thing where I didn't need a whole lot of sleep,
Mm-hmm.
5, 6 hours tops, I can do that. But now I got to go do my whole test in that time with maybe an hour worth of sleep, maybe an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And, so you go do that. And when I went and do my wazas, and this is where Fuzy, I guess the best thing that helped me where I didn't get too intimidated or concerned is I took my glasses off anytime I was on the floor. So I couldn't see face reactions. I couldn't hear when they would lean to each other and kind of whisper, and all that was all designed to, really mess with their heads.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't going to mess with my head because I couldn't see them. My vision is that bad. If we stood toe to toe and you had a patch on, I could not read it. I would have
Oh.
to lead in to read it. So, needless to say, I wasn't the best fighter out there. But I was above average or average, could hold my own. But the main characters were really doing number on you.
Yeah.
But during that test, I told you I broke my hand on the heavy bag, my wrist.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on the Waza, the first guy, I pretty much messed him up within, I'm going to say, maybe a half hour.
Mm-hmm.
The second guy seeing what I did to him, and these guys never seen a test, so they didn't know what to expect. So
Right.
now they're coming in there, and the first guy, I give a command for him to come in so I can do my combination of routine, and he took off running. I'm standing there dumbfounded. I didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting there, ineffective. Do it again. Okay. So I give him a command to go back. I give him a command to come in with this technique. And as soon as I go to move, boom, he bolts again. Ineffective. Do it again. Now we did it, 4 or 5, half a dozen times or whatever. Now I'm being yelled at. Not the guy who's running, by him. And I'm being yelled at, and this is Fuzy's humor. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care if you have to chase this guy down in Chicago. You will hit him. I'll go. Gloves are off. And at that point, I don't know what level I was at in my Wazas, if it was white or yellow, blue, green, and probably mid-level. So, I did just that. I didn't care what my techniques were. I just chased him and wailed on him. What do I hear? Ineffective. Do it again. Same thing. Chasing down, beat him up. It wasn't a case of I didn't even know what my techniques were supposed to be anymore, because you write them all up in your notebook.
Right.
And ineffective. Do it again. Later on, I learned what that was all about. It wasn't for my benefit. It was to teach him a lesson.
Oh.
Yeah. He's taking but I'm tired.
Right.
So
Well,
eventually I was able to end it quick
mm-hmm.
and be done in about an hour, hour and a half. But I did it with a left hand that was messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Fuzy goes in his office, takes my brown belt off, puts my black belt on me, and he goes, "You think you can hit this guy?" "Yes, Sensei." Boom, I nail him in the armor with my right hand.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, ineffective. Do it again. Boom. I'm lighting him up. The
Mm-hmm.
same guy. This is the same guy that ran. Now he goes, "Do it with your left hand."
Is that the hand you broke?
Yeah.
Oh.
And he knows it, because every time I was hitting with it, it dropped to my side.
Mm-hmm.
And I hit him. It was like instead of the loud boom feel that you would get, it was like a little tap.
Mm-hmm.
And it would drop to the side. He goes, "You got to do better than that. Ineffective. Do it again." And I hit him probably 3 or 4 times. And finally I just said to myself, "I'm going to really feel this tomorrow." And I nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the end of my test. But, he does have that way of bringing humor into everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we had our demo team, it wasn't your typical, let's go break boards, break some bricks, do some self-defense, maybe a little bit of wazas, maybe a little bit of weapons.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was all staged and choreographed type fight scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Or the one comical scene was him and the lady that called me up to tell me I only had a half hour. Her name was June Tafts. They had a Raggedy Ann and Andy routine
Mm-hmm.
to the martial arts. I mean, the whole Raggedy Ann routine built, this and that, any, little gadgets built into it. And one of them was like a spring-loaded hand that, something happens, it goes flying out and dangles around in the head. It was they could move, which I couldn't do. But they had like the whole robot type thing that was a craze back then.
Yeah.
At discos, people acting like a robot. Well, that was the Raggedy Ann routine and a robot routine at the same time. The other major scene that we did was a scene from like Bruce Lee movies where you got a bad guy coming into a guy's dojo and challenging everybody.
Mhm.
And then everybody circles around, they battle him, and Bruce Lee, of course, beats everybody up in a circle.
Mhm.
Kind of the same principle, but he took on the soundtrack the Golden Harvest studio from the Enter the Dragon as the background. At the setting of the scene, you got the girls that were on the team in the back, and a guy sitting in a padded what you call it, bed of some sort, seat, and he's sitting in this padded seat, and he's being fanned by the girls, type of, he's the master, da 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 da,
Right.
and that's going on in the background. Meanwhile, all of us surround Fuzy, and he beats the snot out of us, of course. And I was the last. The master would then ki and scatter everybody else, and we all go cowering in the corner, type of deal.
Mhm.
And I'm the last guy center stage. This guy comes up and grabs me by the hair, lifts me up, and he throws a punch, and I go flying. Then while I'm crawling, he's kicking me in the ass all the way into the corner with everybody else.
Mhm.
Now it's his turn. Now he has the live blade samurai sword, and Fuzy has chucks. And during that fighting scene, people had chucks. I had a bow staff, so on and so forth. And he takes them all away from us, type of deal, using the chucks to start with. And this they have this battle of block. He's blocking the chucks and everything. But the ending was the master taking the sword, shoving it between his legs,
Mhm.
and killing him in the crotch. Samurai sword is sticking all the way out the backside of him.
Mhm.
The master was 12 years old kid. He trusted a 12-year-old for that routine.
Oh, geez.
And during practice, that 12-year-old missed him by a fraction of an inch. And he's got those gi pants still. That the blade went all the way through the pant leg.
Oh, it's
He's
a
got a
live
hole on
blade.
the front side, hole on the back side. And
That
it
was a
didn't
live
stop.
blade?
It was a live bladed sword. We didn't do anything with dull blades.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, exactly. So that same kid during rehearsal broke my nose. I mean,
Oh.
when he broke it, when he pulls me up by the hair,
Mhm.
he throws that punch. He didn't look over my hair. So I couldn't get out of I'm playing like, yeah, I'm hurt. Yep, bam.
You're really
Well,
hurt.
oh yeah, I blew blood everywhere. Had to take a break and clean it up. Well, Fuzy has this thing of trying to alleviate your pain with jokes. If you
Mhm.
ever had your rib broke, the last thing you want to do is laugh.
Right, because it would hurt.
But he's going to get you laughing.
Mhm.
He wants you to not focus on the pain, but it's kind of like focus on this. I mean, I coached a baseball team, and I had a kid out on second base, took a hell of a shot, bad bounce, hit him in the groin.
Mhm.
And he's rolling around in the dirt. I go out there and we're helping him out, and he's holding his crotch. I go, I want you to grab your head. I want you to grab your head. He's looking at me kind of funny. So he grabs his head. I go, see, now nobody's looking at you grabbing your balls. He starts laughing his ass off.
Right.
And where did I learn that from?
Grandmaster Fuzy.
That's right. So he'd learn, I was able to learn all kinds of life lessons through him.
Mhm.
Without him, I probably would have been in bad shape on the streets. I
Right.
got two brothers that were, they were, alcoholics or, in trouble, especially my older one all the time. The neighborhood wasn't the best I was in.
Mhm.
And, I got bullied a lot because of my size.
Mhm.
Graduate high school at 125, 6 foot tall. So
You were
you're
a
down there in the
beanpole.
martial arts. Yeah, what's that?
You were a beanpole.
Yes.
Mhm.
Fuzy used to say, just turn sideways. Nobody can see you. So those were his statements to give you an ideal what he was like. And anybody that's been around him will tell you that he has no filter when he throws out his zingers. They just come to him and they come out.
Right.
So I mean, there's all kinds of off the wall ones out there, and he just shrugs his shoulder. But his thing, creativity, what always got me, because how did he come up with that? How did he think of this routine? Where did Raggedy Ann and Andy routine? What kind of mind works that way? And
Somebody to mess with you.
yeah, and he was really good at coming up with creative ideas on things all the time. And I'll give you an idea. People train in kata all the time. Some people will tell the story, if you really want to mess with somebody on kata, turn them facing into a corner. Well, we did it differently. First, you would run it blindfolded to see if you land on the same spot that you started.
Right.
Well, then he would challenge you as a kata guy, run it. You should be so good at running your kata
Backwards.
that you can run it backwards.
Yeah.
And so you've heard that statement.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult to do if you think about it.
Yes,
because
it is.
It's all muscle memory. When you do a kata, like Grandmaster Perry, my grandmaster, tells me that you don't learn a kata, you live a kata. So or a pumse, you live it. You know it so well that once you start doing it, it's just boom, boom, boom. It's all muscle memory. But when you do it backwards, your muscles don't know it backwards. So
right, exactly. Right. And I competed against Perry a lot, Charlie Brown a lot. I was the quiet guy because I was intimidated by them because they've been a black belt for a while. I'm fresh meat, and I have a running joke with Charlie, even though I've known him forever because of his association with Fuzy. They've known each other real well, and because of this association, I became friends with Charlie, and I have a running joke. It's not really much of a joke, but it was more about watching his face expression. I used to go, Charlie was a hell of a competitor. I mean, always, doing well in tournaments. And he was always, if I saw Charlie, Mike Pacala, Gary in some cases, some of these other known guys, I'm like, yeah, I'm just going through the motion, man.
Right.
So I told Charlie Brown, because you know how many times I beat you? He starts thinking real hard. He's looking at me with a look on his face. And I just grin at him. I go, 0. Never once did I ever beat Charlie Brown.
You never beat Charlie Brown?
So,
Grandmaster Brown?
What's that?
You never beat Grandmaster Brown? Wow.
Not once. And I asked him, when I started that question, I first asked him, how many times do you think I competed against you? And he just, he had no, I wasn't a concern for him. That's how I felt. And he said, I didn't beat him once. So he wasn't worried about me. But if I lined up the fight, the funny thing is, you're fresh meat. All the great fighters are fighting behind you or in front of you to get their first. They want to fight you. They don't want to fight each other. They want to fight the fresh meat. And I was like, but that was my fighting career. Always fresh meat to these guys. They learn that I don't mind fighting. I don't mind getting in there. I don't mind going at it. But I think they figured out my weakness. And that was my eyesight.
Oh.
At that speed, I don't know what you're throwing. Right. I have no clue. So the way I fought was I was more of a counter type fighter, touch contact type. But I learned, and nobody taught me this, that I would watch the upper chest, biggest part of the body. If they dipped that shoulder and that chest muscle, I knew it was coming from that side.
Right.
What it was, I don't know. But, and the same thing on the other side. Well, to make things worse, I was sparring somebody, and I came in, I shot in when they went to do a spin technique, closing that gap. This cat hit me on the knee as I was at the mid-range point, locked it straight back. That was pretty much the end of my fighting career. A blind guy who can't see, and now a guy who's not mobile.
Yeah,
That's
you're a
not
city
good
dog.
combination.
No.
And the damage to my knee was all the cartilage was gone. So as a young, at that time, 20, 21, maybe 22-year-old, you're standing there bone on bone. So a lot of things would hurt. If you go do a kata and there's a stomp, or you know how some people really like to lay their feet down on the hard surface, that vibration of me running a kata would hurt. If I throw a kick and with that left leg and somebody blocks it, it would bring tears to my eyes.
Right.
You know, that type of feeling. So you had to learn, okay, only time I would show kicks wasn't for the intention of scoring with those kicks. It was just for the purpose of showing you I have them.
Right.
Because even if you block my good leg, the vibration to my supporting leg would hurt. So I was a struggling, artist back then, but I went as far as I could with my competition as I could. And I didn't care if I won or not. To me, it was more about getting out there and banging with people. I was such a shy kid that nobody knew I even talked until I was a green belt.
Sometimes that's safer.
Everything came out. I shake my head and say, yes, Sensei, or yes, so-and-so. Because if you were a Q rank, you referred to them as Mr. Busser or Mr. Brown or Mr. So-and-so Smith. I myself, that's about as much you would get out of me. And the way Fuzy broke that, and the reason I was shy is when I was a very young person, first, second, kindergarten, I had a bad stutter. So, again, that's never good to have in school. People pick on you. So I went to enough classes to help work that stuttering out. And, but that part of me stuck with me. I was always, gun shy to speak. And as you can tell now, I'm making up for it.
No, you do pretty well.
Well, I didn't speak, but once you got to green belt level and blue belt level, you were allowed to do warm-ups. So you would do the 20-minute warm-ups before class. You know the routine, and that type of deal. So the blue belts would warm up the beginners class, which were the white, yellow belts. And then usually the advanced class, which was the blue belts and above, somebody else would be assigned to that. That was their scheduled date. Well, as soon as I got my blue belt, what did Fuzy do? He knew I'm not a talker. He knew I had stage fright issues. He said, "You're going to go do warm-ups." And he told me later on that my eyes were the size of a $50. I'm like, what? Well, you went out there, marched, and did your best, and that was going to be your date from there on out. You come down, you had to do basic warm-ups for the base class. Then you kind of walked around and kind of looked at things, but you didn't really correct things. He wanted you to get familiar with being an assistant, because at green belt level, you now become an assistant. So there were always kind of stages, that were done, during your training down there. And we had an old wrestling mat that was at the front of the school. That was where we trained our judos and our takedowns on, but not all the time. Sometimes, there's too many people. Well, you did it on the hard floor, that type of stuff. When we did our demonstrations, you didn't have the nice fancy fold up, take with you mats. So you're being tossed around on the hard surface. Now, and you had to know how to land. Well, remember what I told you about Fuzy saying, I know how to fly and I know how to bounce? We had 12 or 14 members of this demonstration, and they would all get a moment to do a was that they create. So you got 11 of them coming through. Who was their uke? Me.
You.
The only person I wasn't an uke for was the black belts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being Fuzy and another guy named Mark Marabito. They
Mm-hmm.
were, you know, Marabito would be Fuzy's uke at that time,
Right.
and the rest of them, I was everybody's uke. The female black belts, we didn't have another black belt at that time yet, other than Mark Marabito, Mary Kay, June Tafts, right? Yeah, those were the main characters at that time during our
Mm-hmm.
demo team, and it was just a heck of a learning aspect to be part of that. All the, you know, his way of, if you messed up your bit,
Mm-hmm.
you know how he would say, "Do it again." Well,
Mm-hmm.
if you missed your time on your movements or something like that, the music was all choreographed, everybody moved at once, type of deal. Do it again. You didn't do it from somewhere in the middle. You did it from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you had to do the whole routine. Well, we had a thing that was set to weapons and music.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't imagine doing this being tone deaf.
No.
I can't hear the beat.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm either too early or too late. So you can imagine the pressure that got put on me by the other members of the team because they're having to work
Right.
harder. You know, and I'm doing the best. Well, what Fuzy learned to do to get me so I'm not constantly looking and peering off to the side trying to get that timing going
Mm-hmm.
is once I got right, if I could get that start right, I was good for the rest of the routine because it was all about
Oh.
keeping that flow of movements
Right.
right. But I could never get the first couple movements correct. I was just a hair late or a hair early.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would stand there on the floor with his bow staff, boom, to the beat of the music. So I could get an
Mm-hmm.
understanding what it was. And him being a musician, he had a hard time understanding somebody who, you know, it came so easy for him. I had no
Right.
clue, man. You know, I had issues as a kid.
Wow.
But my whole goal was to
Seems
get
like
good
you overcome
enough
them.
so the bully. What's that?
I said, seems like
Sorry.
you.
I agree with that. And you know, I got to the point where I was going to get through this so the bullies would stop. And within 6 months of just signing up for karate, it got out that I was, you know, he's taking karate, and people never picked
Mm-hmm.
on me again. I said, wow. The only problem is I ended up falling in love
Right.
with it. So you know, that became a career for me.
Yeah.
You know, in the martial arts, I just enjoyed it so much I couldn't do without it. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed the learning process. Uh, I learned from more how to perform dead hand techniques and how to do the
Mm-hmm.
one-hand touch. Because at a demonstration, I had issues breaking a board as a green belt.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who picked up the board, like I said, it's all up, and the board was as green as could be. And you know, if you got a green looking board, it's full of sap.
Yeah.
So it's going to flex a lot.
It's not gonna break.
And I didn't have any luck.
Mm-hmm.
No, I hit it 3 times, and you can watch the guy holding it. It's bowing, but it's not giving. So I
Mm-hmm.
switched stance because I about tore up. And again, you know that how I broke my wrist on my heavy bag was that same technique.
Oh,
So
geez.
I did that. It's called a chicken head wrist strike. So you're hitting with the wrist part.
Mm-hmm.
And if you hit it wrong, like up in this area, yeah, it's going to be very painful. And that's what I
Right.
did on the heavy bag.
Oh, geez.
And on this particular case, I hit it with my left hand and just one bang, it went. Well, after
Mm-hmm.
we were done with the routine, this was out at a big mall somewhere out by Northfield Racetrack. Northfield something
Mm-hmm.
or other was the mall, like the biggest mall in northern Ohio at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, we always afterwards we disperse take questions, so on, so on and so forth. Well, this little guy came up to me and started asking me questions, and I'm so.
Mhm.
And then one of the things he said was, "You know what you did wrong, didn't you?" And in the back of my mind, I'm going, "Oh, here we go. It's another one of these so-called experts."
Mhm.
What I didn't know is who he was. And we were chatting a little bit. He's showing me, da, 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 da. I'm taking it all in. Yeah, okay, okay. And I'm thinking the whole time, I thought I did all those things he
Mhm.
was saying.
Right.
And Fuzy, he'll walk around the whole circle and get, hey, you need me to answer any questions type of thing. Well,
Mhm.
when he got to me, he goes, any questions you want me to ask? And the guy turned to him and said, no, I think I pretty much got it covered. Fuzy then does like a double take look at the guy. And it was Robert Moore.
Oh.
Robert Moore had a perm,
Mhm.
that was big back in that day. And
Mhm.
so, a lot of people did the perms. I for one did not.
Mhm.
I didn't have any hair to do that, but they hugged it out. They went nuts. I go, oh shoot. And then he asked Fuzy, he goes, you mind if I show him? Fuzy goes, I don't know why you're asking me, ask him.
Mhm. Mhm.
And of course, what's my response? Yes,
Yes,
sensei.
Sensei.
Sure. Now we're in the middle of this mall. There's still people hovering around.
Mhm.
So, Moore asked me to get into a nice stance, and I did. He goes, you're in a good stance. And he stands there and goes, he's going to do the same strike, upper chest area. And he goes, you ready after, a little bit? And he's standing there straight facing me. He's not in any type of stance or anything like that. And he takes his hand, back of his hand, and he gets it maybe about an inch, maybe 2-inch tops away from my chest.
Mhm.
Bam! My legs turned to rubber. I was staggering around about 10, maybe not quite 15 feet, but it felt that way because it took me forever to get back to him, as
Mhm.
it seemed. Like slow motion feel. And it didn't hurt, but to hit me in the upper chest and have your legs go on you,
Mhm.
that was just so bizarre. At that point moving forward, I want to learn this.
Right.
I got to know what that was because we did not go into depth on dead hand striking type thing. You were demonstrated it, but it was mainly more not the conditioning part was taught to you or anything. Fuzy
Mhm.
would like to do things like, has anybody, and this is always the new blue belts in advanced class. Has anybody ever seen a dead hand strike? And the blue belts, they all raise their hands. Nobody from the new blue belts are raising their hands, or nobody who
Mhm.
has ever seen this will raise their hand. And of course, everybody's had their turn in the barrel with this one. They'll all tell
Spooky.
you that. Yep. Well, no, he'll just come up to you and say, okay, he'll pull you off and shows the stance, get in what would be a saddle leg stance or a horse stance that people call it. And you're to put two hands up, just out in front of you. He puts two hands just above it, maybe about, maybe a foot.
Mhm.
Bam! Your arms go to the side. You can't lift them. They won't move. And
Mhm.
you'll have a streak going up your arm,
Mhm.
this red, line. And your arms are done. Okay, get back in line. What will he do? Moving forward, throwing punches, or in a saddle leg stance, throwing punches. You can't lift your arm. And he's standing out there giving you all kinds of shit because
Mhm.
you're doing this stuff, you're doing the best you can. But that's Harrington and Fuzy, their sense of humor. Well, I'm sure Moore had his own stories,
Mhm.
when it came to that. But after that mall, Moore wanted to come down to the school and show us stuff.
Mhm.
So we went down there and he first thing he did, he wanted everybody, to get around him like that fight scene. Because a lot of times if you get jumped by a group, how does it work? They don't all get in front of you, they circle you.
Right.
And that's what he did. Well, prior to that, he grabs a bow staff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's standing there, and we'll go, oh man, we don't know what to expect. He's not telling us when to come in. He's not saying you do this, you do that. He's not instructing. He just wanted you to come at him. Anybody, everybody, didn't matter. We got all said and done. Every single one of us are on our backside looking up to imagine the sound of a bow staff whistling at you, striking you and not hurting you.
Mm-hmm.
That
That's
blew me
impressive.
away.
It's very
That
impressive.
was extremely impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And they're using a bow staff that is that big around.
Mm-hmm.
Very little taper to it. Solid cherry. How do I know this? Because it was my bow staff and I still have it today.
Oh, wow.
Heavy as snot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not these toothpicks you see in tournaments today, people spinning them because they're titanium. Prior to the titanium and the fiberglass bow staffs, you know what some people were using?
Broomsticks.
Nope. Curtain rods. And they would get plug buttons and put at the end of them so they would
Oh,
lightweight.
I didn't.
Well,
Wouldn't have thought
in
that.
one tournament, the guy got it spinning so hard it slid out of his hand, hit the floor, and and the plug buttons bounced out. He
Oh,
picked it
geez.
up, slowly walked off the floor. Well, in our era, you had every right as a judge say, "Hey, let me inspect that weapon,"
Mm-hmm.
because they wanted to make sure nobody with lightweight, not real weapons doing weapon katas. They
Right.
wanted the real thing. And it had to have the nice weight to it. It had to be, like a bow staff. Each toothpick bow staffs that they used, that they later used, they were not allowed. And then
Right.
if you came to the tournament with one of those, you were told, can't use that.
Mm-hmm.
Here, use this one.
Well,
And
they
you
could
see a big
inspect
difference.
they could inspect your boards, your bricks, anything back then, right?
You're right, absolutely.
Now you
And
can't even take that stuff to tournaments.
no, and because everybody's after the flash.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at it. People doing gymnastic moves in kata.
Yeah.
Where was that ever a thing? Somebody did like maybe a backflip one time. Somebody went berserk. Now everybody's doing a backflip. Oh, now
Mm-hmm.
they're doing this, and that. The other thing you never see happening is somebody spinning their sword or bow staff and they fling it up in the air. Baton twirling is what I call it. And they catch
Right.
it.
Mm-hmm.
There was a penalty if your weapons left your hand. A penalty if you dropped your weapons during a kata.
Mm-hmm.
Your weapons weren't designed to touch the ground
Right.
unless you were doing a traditional samurai sword where you place the sword maybe in front of you and it's
Mm-hmm.
part of the routine. But that was it. Now, back then, most people that ran samurai sword katas, they slide it through their belt. But there's one kata out there, I don't remember the name. The guy would come from a kneeling position, and the sword would be in front of them, and they would bow to the judges, pick up the sword, put it into his belt, and then start his kata.
Mm-hmm.
But people, I mean, back then, foot pads, no. Handbags, no. Headgear, no. Mouthpiece and cup.
Mm-hmm.
Cup was optional. Mouthpiece was mandatory. Because
Right.
brown belt division and above in the Midwest area, you were allowed groin techniques.
Mm-hmm.
You were allowed takedowns on the hard floor. You had 3 seconds, a count of 3, to finish your technique if you took somebody down. So
Mm-hmm.
you'll center ref say 1001, 1002, 1003. You get that technique in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I decided back in when I always said because of my injuries, when I turned 35, I want to fight in seniors division. They look like they're having so much fun because they're not
Mm-hmm.
out there trying to kill each other.
Right.
They've already made their bones, and they're
Mm-hmm.
just having a nice, friendly sparring match. And I turned 35. I did pretty good. I was fighting to move on. I ended up taking third, but in that particular match that I lost to get third, this black belt threw a kick. And the one thing I was good with without my eyesight is catching kicks.
Mhm.
I It's hard to explain, but I would give them a target, but my arm would always be below that target.
Mhm.
And I could shift back just enough so when they go to retract their kick, it would hook my arm. And then I would
Mhm.
catch it, turn it, return a kick in their groin, after I turn them over. Nowadays you'll see people try to jump and do a heel kick. But I was fast enough that by the time I hit you in the cup, that turn heel kick wasn't coming out. You were too
Right.
busy curling up the ball. And in this particular one, my knees are shot. I'm 35. I can barely move. I caught this guy kick, lift him up, dumped him on the back. I hear the center ref go 1, 2, 3. By that time, I was already down on my knees and I'm punching. Got this punch 3/4 out, going to hit him. I hit his cup, and it makes that distinct sound. And the crowd goes, they always go nuts in the black belt rank when you hit somebody in the groin. Don't know why,
Mhm.
and the brown belt level, but they always get a kick out of that particular sound. And the
Mhm.
refs will call it when they hear that sound, even if they can't physically see it. They will generally, because of the body language and the sound, they will automatically call it.
Mhm.
Because if you had to work the judges in your favor in that ring, so you move, so you had the majority of judges on your side. So you didn't have to worry about the
Mhm.
blind judge can't see you making contact going, I didn't see it. So that
Right.
was also big back. Today they call everything. They don't see it, they call it. Go, how do you know it touched them?
Mhm.
You don't know.
They don't.
And
No.
you got a lot of fakers out there now,
Right.
they go flying if they get lightly touched. And so,
Mhm.
it was a whole different era back then. And
Right.
today, and the youngsters will tell you, yeah, you're just all fired or whatever like that. Well, I wish you could fight somebody of that caliber and get
Right.
hit like those guys can hit you. And
It's
you
a
tell
different
me,
time.
yeah. And was it was correct for the time, but the one thing I do like is the headgear
Mhm.
because, from all the hits I've taken, I have issues. I
Right.
have a dead zone about the size of a golf ball in my frontal lobe.
Oh.
I get cluster migraines, and when you
Mhm.
get those, they last. Now, I didn't have these in my early ages. They came in, once I moved out here.
Mhm.
I'm not competing anymore in Arizona. And I had to go get
Right.
an MRI, and they asked me, were you a boxer? I said, no. Did you play football? I said, no, not really. Just, what we did in the backyard type football. And then I started grinning, and the doctor goes, well, what's that smile about? I go, well, I've been a martial artist for over 40 some years.
Mhm. Right.
And he just shook his head. I go, but, if I had headgear, would that issue? I don't know if it would be not be an issue or is an issue, but yeah, it probably would have probably helped or minimized things. But
Right.
it was a different era, and the way we
Yeah.
fought back then was different. I mean, you had to hit the body. You didn't
Mhm.
have to touch it. You know, no, if it didn't look like you didn't hit the guy, if you're just playing tag out there, a lot of times they didn't score. You had to hit the guy.
Right.
Brown belt division was semi-contact,
Mhm.
meaning you can hit the guy. And the only thing they didn't want to see is blood. Now
Right.
you can't have facial contact.
No.
I'm like, you're not toughening that head up for taking any type of technique at all. You know,
Mm-mm.
so you got disqualified if there was a sign of blood.
Mhm.
That was it. And so and you didn't have the fakers out there that'll bite their lip. You know, got a lot of
Yeah.
those guys rolling around.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez.
and I would, once I was doing ref in the ring, I said, he bit his lip. Okay, and we got more and more strict down there at the place that we fought. It was every third Sunday of the month, OJKA, Ohio Judo Karate Association.
Mhm.
That is the building that Moore was asked to come help out at. It was ran by a gentleman named Dale Brooks, and Moore was requested by Triage to go help him out.
Mhm.
And Moore came over there to help and evaluate his stuff and bring it up to another level. But that became also the home of the International Kickboxing Hall of Fame.
Right. What you're a
That was
member of?
ran by, yes, I am, along with about less than 200 other of us.
Mhm.
Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, Bill Wallace, Joe Louis, all the big bangers back in the day were part of that. Charlie Brown is in that Hall of Fame. And a lot of us got in there because we were out there, we were competing.
Mhm.
They may not have known my name, but they always saw me. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
So it wasn't a case that they didn't know me, but they, if I'm fighting, they're always going to be one of those guys wanting to line up against me. Then sometimes they were shocked that I was on my game today, and they'd lose to me.
Right.
But I can say they were some great competitors and great times back then. And but it was every Thursday.
Mhm.
Every third Sunday.
Mhm.
And it went on forever. I mean, from the early 70s all the way out to, well, probably the late 1900s before I even came out here. It
Oh
started
wow.
going downhill right before I came out here because, the gentleman that ran at Dan Sword, he was having health issues.
Mhm.
So other people were taking it on and changing the rules and changing the guidelines. And, they were just making it their own. And it became really a mess. So people quit supporting it. Well, Dan
Right.
also did the Hall of Fame, and it wasn't like you see today's Hall of Fames where 30, 40 people get in every year.
Mhm.
Only 1 to 3 to 4 a year. That's it.
Wow.
And being around from the the early 70s to all the way to what appeared to be around early 2000 era,
Mhm.
and then still have only 200 people in it. That's pretty cool in my books. I
Absolutely.
mean, and now the Cleveland Hall of Fame has absorbed it to
Mhm.
keep those names active, I guess
Right.
you call it.
Mhm.
I don't know what to really think of that.
Mhm.
If they wanted it for the notoriety of the names that are in it, but Dan Sword, from what I understand, gave them the rights to it. I don't know if
Mhm.
he sold it to them or what,
Right.
but that's pretty much. But now you look at that. I mean, you got baseball. How many Hall of Fames are there?
One.
One. How about football?
One.
College football, same thing.
One.
Basketball, same thing.
Right.
Martial arts, how many are there?
I couldn't even begin to tell you. A lot.
A lot, a
Mhm.
boatload of them. And back then, you had Dan Sword and maybe two others, if that.
Mhm.
So to me, it was an honor to be part of that. Now I may
Oh,
be sticking
absolutely.
myself, ruining my chances of any other Hall of Fames, but I'm like, my career is what it is. I'm not going out there, chasing more notoriety.
Yes,
I
sir.
I don't go to school. I don't have any need for it. We weren't big on stroking our own personal egos.
Mhm.
We don't call each other grandmaster. We don't call each other master. It was always just plain sensei. So,
Right.
I have a hard time trying to get that master into some of the terminology when, if I see Charlie Brown, it's Sensei Brown.
Mhm.
I got correct myself and say, sorry, Grandmaster Brown, and each of us, because they were just like us.
Right.
Now,
And
Trias, oh, go ahead.
those the older grandmasters like Charlie Brown and yourself, and they're not like the the new grandmasters of today, you guys are very laid back and just good people. I mean, I'm not saying the new ones aren't, but it's a different era. The way you guys brought up, I mean, on the mat, you expect excellence. I get that 100%, but off the mat, it's just different.
Well, off the mat, if I'm out at a store and I bump into Fuzy,
Mhm.
and if I do not bow to him as
Right.
if you're at the school, yeah,
Mhm.
you're going to hear about it.
Well, yeah, that's common courtesy. Courtesy is always the same, but I mean, it's just
Yeah, but
the
today,
self-inflated egos are different.
yeah, the egos are different because everybody wants these titles.
Uh-huh.
I was in as an organization for a short period of time, and the person would go, "Oh, you're a henchie." I looked at him, going, "I don't know what he's talking about,"
Mhm.
because we didn't do the titles,
Right.
because Moore and Trias were creating the American karate system.
Mhm.
That's what they called it. If someone asked you what your system was, it was American karate system. That was what Trias was working with, and
Mhm.
Robert Moore was, buying into it with the Jido Kwan background. And basically, it didn't matter what your style was or your system was from. If it was good, we're going to use it. So they
Right.
got a little bit of judo, they got jujitsu, they got your karate, they got Shotokan katas, they got so and so kata. It was just pull it in. We'll use it if we can use it.
Mhm.
And that's
Right.
pretty much how it came about. He had Trias had a judo guy named Sonny Thompson.
Mhm.
Now, most of these guys that I know all came from the Houston region.
Mhm.
Sonny Thompson, Robert Moore, Curtis Harrington. Guess who else came from that region?
Who?
Chuck Norris.
Oh yeah. Still has
So
a well, he
they
had well, he had
all
a front.
competed against each other back in those days.
Mhm.
So they all knew each other, and they were all pretty much the same. Everybody was a sensei. Now
Mhm.
people don't may not or realize this, but the reason Trias organization grew to the size that it did was people realized we don't want to go to Asia anymore to get our certificates. We
Mhm.
give them money. They have no idea what we look like. They have no idea who we really are. And they send you a piece of paper,
Right.
right? Well, Trias, he had people in line in different regions that you went and they would certify your judo, your jiu-jitsu, your karate type of stuff. Well, we were
Mhm.
fortunate to be under Robert Moore. Robert Moore was an officer for Trias's organization and wrote uh, tournament rules, training manuals, black belt manuals, and he did a lot of that stuff for that organization.
Mhm.
How do I know this? Because I have a copy of those manuals.
Wow. It's pretty
Not too
awesome.
many people have
I wouldn't think so.
them. And I guard them with my life. They're my babies, because there's so much cool stuff in those things to read on and see, and the idea to make a binder that's 1.5 inch training manual,
Mhm.
hand sketches, you know, the
Right.
figurine sketches and stuff that you would see. It's like boggled my mind. And they had to draw all those out individually to create this manual. They had to
Mhm.
hand type everything. There is no computer. There is no spell check. You miss something out, you crumbled the page away and had to do it over again. You didn't have what do you call it, the whiteout back in
Mhm.
those days,
Right.
or whiteout tape that they would use to and
Mhm.
then type over it. You,
Mhm.
you sometimes, if you took like a hard eraser, you could kind of rub it out, but it would
Mhm.
darken it, and then you would know that it was an error. So
Right.
I can't imagine, somebody and and henpecking away to create a manual that large back
It
then.
was different time.
Oh yeah, a lot of time had to be spent to create these manuals I
Right.
have every single of our written katas from back in that era
Wow.
and a few other written out.
Hmm.
And Fuzy, his whole life, did not want to videotape.
Hmm.
His thinking is you don't learn, you're just following.
Right.
If you're learning how to write them, your brain is active.
Hmm.
You're thinking, how does this work? Okay, I turn 90 degrees to my left, execute a block over my front leg, type of deal.
Hmm.
Execute a downward block, step through and punch. Okay,
Right.
step through and punch. No, step through and punch with what? So you had to get it right. If you just said, I turn 90 degrees, downward block and punch, that's not going to be correct.
Hmm.
You'll see that in your notebooks because typically a white belt, that's how they would write. So when you turn it in as your notebook, they look at it, they critique the snot out of it, and then you learn, no, I had to turn 90 degrees to my left, downward block, step forward, and then punch.
Hmm.
Then you'll get, no, that's not right. What are you missing? You have to think again. What am I missing? They're not telling you, they're trying to get you to work your brain. So now it becomes
Right.
turn and look. Then turn 90 degrees to your left. Execute a downward block over your
Hmm.
front leg. Step forward with a guard arm. Step through with a
Hmm.
four-fist punch to the solar plex. Now, that's just your basic of all basic katas. Now, trying
Right.
to write out your advanced katas.
A lot more detail.
A lot more detail, a lot more terminology you had to fit into it. Oh yeah, and the whole time you're turning in your notebook at your test. Nope, do it again. And there were people that were okay, you flunked on your notebook alone. Didn't mean you redid your test. It meant you got a couple weeks to get your notebook right.
Right.
So but you weren't going to get a belt until everything was together. And,
Right.
that's the training we had back then.
Hmm.
And today you have so much going on in the arts that after Fusy's passing, my head just, wow. I had
Right.
no idea there are so many frauds in the arts that just blew me away.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
2 weeks
But
before, oh, go ahead.
we're gonna have to use that for the next episode,
Okay.
because we're a little bit over an hour, and I like to keep it right around an hour. So
Okay.
we can pick this
Well,
up tomorrow if you like.
sure. Whatever you want to do, I'm fine with that, and we'll just go into the bad actors of the world.
Absolutely,
and
I'm down for that.
and hit that up pretty good because
Absolutely,
nobody
sir.
wants to talk about that one.
No,
Okay.
I absolutely want to hear what you have to say, but I've come to find out that people's attention span are right around 45 minutes to an hour, and we're a little bit over that, which is okay because I was very interested in I kind of lost track of time. So
Okay.
I thank you for being on the show, and
You bet.
stay with me after I stop the recording. We'll talk about it. But I
Okay,
want to
good.
thank everybody for watching. I want to thank you for being on, sir. We will
Thank
pick
you
this
for
up
having me.
tomorrow, and always like, share, and subscribe, and take care of one another, folks. Tung Su.